Okay, so on this one, we have a square root we want to simplify. Well, the first thing we're going to do on this one is we're just going to divide the numbers inside. Like 2 goes into 128. You can use your calculator 64 times. And then remember, so just divide the numbers. And remember what we do with powers? Subtract the powers, right? So it's going to be z to the 4th on the top. So this will become, let's see here, this will become, actually, I don't even need a thing that big anymore. It's just going to become 64 z to the 4th. I'm not done, but so far so good. Is that making sense? I just divide, 128 divided by 2 is 64. You subtract the powers, z to the 4th. Okay. Hey, you want actually let me make it more interesting. I mean, that's right. Well, I did is right. What if the bigger one was on the bottom? What if it was z to the 11th on the top and 15 on the bottom? Let me make it more interesting. Well, the same kind of thing. I would divide the numbers. That'd be 64 on the top. Let me just show you in case you have a more challenging one. That would end up with the 64 on the top. And then do you realize the z to the 4th would end up on the bottom? I just want to point out, wherever the higher power is, that's where the leftovers end up, right? Right. So my original one had the 15th on the top. So the z to the 4th would have ended up on the top, and we wouldn't have had anything on the bottom at all, right? I would have just written 64 square root of 64 z to the 4th, and then I would simplify from there, right? But let me make it more interesting. What if you had it on the bottom? What if you had, this was 11 on the top, this is 15 on the bottom. If the bigger power is on the bottom, then the leftover ends up on the bottom. So wherever the bigger power is, that's where the leftover ends up. Why? Because they cancel, right? Z to the 15th means 15. These are 15 Z's. They look like 2's, don't they? There's 15 Z's. And on the top, there's 11 Z's. 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one more. So these 5 and 5 will cancel 5 and 5, and this one will cancel 1, and you'll have 4 left over on the bottom, right? It's just a canceling. And wherever there's more, that's where there's leftover. Okay, anyway, so where do we go from there now? So now we would say, we don't need the square root anymore. We're going to square root both the numbers. What's the square root of 64? Out comes an 8. And what's the square root of z to the 4th? Z squared. And we're done. No more square root. No more square root, right? You square root the number and you divide the power in half, right? I cut the power in half. Why? Because that's what square roots always do. They're a 2-for-1 deal. And whatever's on the bottom has to stay in the bottom, right? That z to the 4th is in the bottom. So it has to come out in the bottom. And the square root of 64 is 8. And there's no more square root, right? Once you do the square root of the number and the letter, it's gone. You don't write the square root again. The square root has done his job and he's gone. So the square root does his job and then he leaves. So we square rooted the 64 and we square rooted the z to the 4th. And there's our answer, final answer like that. There we go.